All right. Well, welcome travelers to the Speed Traveler Road Show, available on KHTS AM 1220 FM 98.1. That's Charlie Frank. I'm Chris Evertsen. And Charlie, it's great to be back in the studio again after a little bit of drizzle has just washed the California coastline awash.
Yeah, it's amazing. For those of you who don't know, apparently the San Diego freeway has been washed away to sea, and no one can drive from San Diego to Los Angeles.
Yep. Anytime it starts to sprinkle a little bit in Southern California, we all panic. You know, get our galoshes out and our life vests.
Oh my God, it's full panic, right?
Full panic.
It's so funny. It's just great. And people from out of state are like, wait, what? You guys aren't going to work today because it's drizzling?
I actually have to admit that I took advantage of that. You know, I didn't drive up for the show the last week, only because, you know, it's like, oh, you know what? It's a hard drive sometimes. You know, as much as we love driving, sometimes driving's a little bit of a pain in the keister.
Yeah.
And, you know, driving through LA on the 405 or through Southern California on the 5 freeway, it gets kind of crazy out there. So I took advantage of that. I called in sick that
A
day.
little bit sick. That's funny.
But we're here now.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is you called in sick to me. No one else cares, right?
No one else cares.
So you called in sick to me. So I'm not sure I like that.
That's too funny.
But if you are new to the Speed Traveler Roadshow, we talk everything about the automobile, and we talk about buying classic cars and selling classic cars. We talk about great road trips that we've taken, and actually we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And Chris and I are professional drivers, race car driving instructors, stunt drivers, and we bought and sold a lot of cars, a couple hundred cars at least.
At least.
And so we like to share our information on what to do, and definitely we're really good at what not to do.
Yeah, we've learned that. I don't know why, but we keep relearning that lesson.
But on today's Speed Traveler Roadshow, we are going to talk a little bit later about Formula One and the 10 Formula One teams that are going to compete for the 2024 championship.
I have to jump in, and I'm just upset it's only 10.
Yeah, right. And Chris is referencing the fact that the American team, Andretti Global, was turned down for their application to race in the F1 championship. So we'll talk about that more later for sure. Also, Chris, we're going to talk about some of our favorite road trips that you can take on your own, and some highlights of fun stops along the road. And then also we're going to talk about importing cars from Europe and Brazil, which we have experience in both. And the U.S. dollar is strong right now. And so, you know, there's certainly some bargains out there overseas that you can take advantage of, and we're going to give you some insight on how to import a car.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that because, I mean, like you just mentioned, the dollar is very strong, and there are some great cars to get out of Europe right now.
Right.
And we'll show some tips on who and how to ship some of the cars, ship cars to the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. But first, let's start with some car news, Chris. And you want to talk a little bit about Ford? And it's interesting. I can lead into it if you want. They reported their fourth quarter earnings, and their revenue was up by 4%, which is a good thing. But they did report a loss of about $500 million in that last quarter. And they said that was due to an accounting change, which might be short talk for. Yeah. We lost and we don't have a good excuse.
We don't have a good excuse. And we're just this is how we're going to deal with that.
But the stock price has got to stay high. So we got to come up with something.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is they still had annual earnings of almost $15 billion.
Right.
But the interesting part about that is they had gross profit of almost $15 billion, yet their EV, the electric vehicle division, lost almost $5 billion.
I know.
That's crazy.
And it's crazy. We definitely talk about EVs, and Chris and I both like EVs in general. I think if you right place, right time, right community, like Santa Monica, we were talking about how the city of Santa Monica, a lot of people work out of their house. They don't have to travel far. I mean, EV makes a lot of sense there. And, it's helping to keep the air a little cleaner in that part of town. But overall, I think what you and I have an issue with is when people, when the government mandates that you need to drive this car. I mean, clearly Ford is seeing that the demand isn't quite there for any EVs right now.
Yeah, and even before we get into the whole what Ford's doing, because we talked about Toyota last time and how they're addressing and what they're doing in the EV market or not doing in the EV market. It's, you talked about the mandates, and this is the part where I struggle with this so mightily. You
Right.
mentioned it works great in some areas, but it equally doesn't work in other areas. And we're being ramrodded one pill to fix
Right.
everything. And the same pill doesn't fix everything for everybody.
Right.
And that's a real problem. When we look at everyone as one unit, yeah, we are one people. Great. Kumbaya, everybody. We are the world. Don't beat your children. No, that's not how it goes. But one pill doesn't fix everything. We have to have a variety of solutions. And this is taking that opportunity to have a variety of solutions and innovation come forward when we're just being told this is the way you're going to do it and this is the only way you can do it.
Right. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There should be all sorts of investment in other alternative fuels, because that's according to Toyota. I mean, Toyota, they sold 11 million cars last year.
Over $11 million.
Yeah,
a million
and of
cars.
that, they sold less than 100,000 electric. I think they sold less than 80,000 electric cars.
All electric. Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Their feeling is the biggest car manufacturer in the world at the moment is thinking that there's some other better alternatives out there, and I don't blame them.
Right. I mean, they're looking at hydrogen, they're looking at ammonia, they're looking at other, combustion-based systems that take a lot less petrol, oil, dinosaur juice to run. And it should be an eye-opening moment for everybody. And what makes it even more eye-opening for me is the fact that Ford is following suit.
Yeah.
They made a huge investment in the United States in manufacturing electric vehicles here, particularly the Ford F-150 Lightning, which quite frankly, I think I was so excited about that project. I really was, because I thought, because that's something I would use all the time if it worked right. I mean, I like trucks.
Yeah, exactly.
I like big trucks. And it's interesting where, this facility, they spent billions of dollars developing, and they're now literally wiping half of that system off of the production line. They're going down. They're eliminating 50% of the production capabilities or capacity from their capacity, and they are also eliminating how many jobs as a result. Or let me rephrase: they are actually transitioning these jobs to. I think they said that they're not actually going to be losing a lot of employees, but 50% of the workforce on the Lightning 150 project are going to be moved into other sectors within the Ford facility.
Yeah, and it's a bummer for those. That represents 1,400 Americans in Dearborn, Michigan, that are going to, really don't know what their future is right now. So it's a bummer, and I think that the point of that is you can't force people to buy electric cars if they're just not ready to buy them yet.
Especially in today's world. I mean, everyone gets up on their soapboxes on various social medias and spew out their opinions and whatnot. But the more we try to force people to do one thing, I think people in general are going to show more resistance.
Yeah. Exactly. And we're seeing it. And I think that something doesn't smell right, in Washington with all these mandates.
I'm so glad you didn't say Denmark.
So something doesn't smell right in the cheese factory in Switzerland. But something doesn't smell right to me in Washington with everyone pushing this green agenda and electric cars and having to rely on China to make the 90% of the batteries.
Right.
I mean, that just seems. I'm a simple guy, but that just seems like a really bad idea.
But
to me.
It's not difficult math.
Yeah, right. Give our biggest adversary in the world control over our automotive industry,
or over the largest economy sector of the economy, one of the largest sectors of the economy here in the U.S.
Right. And and if you're listening to our show on radio, we're following the Dana Show, which is a political show, and we're not trying to get political. But with that said, it just something doesn't seem right that we would be willing to subcontract out the production of our propulsion system to China, right?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. And you always say something, when you say something doesn't seem right, I feel like, I know you're kind of dancing around the reality of this.
Whoa.
It's easy there, big fella. Easy.
Almost fell off my chair.
drunk with electricity.
Right.
You're kind of soft pedaling what I think is both of our part of both of our opinion. It's not a single line item, but there's just a lot of lobbying going on to spend money in a very specific way, and politicians are being bought and sold through lobbyists, very legal channels, although I disagree with it, but still legal channels, but it's everything's being bought and sold, and it's
both sides.
It's both sides. It's just politics.
And they're selling
It's just
out.
politics. It's not one side or the other. No. It's just politics, and everyone's lining their pockets without looking at what is really in the best interest of not only global, climate change, which I don't care what anyone says. The climate is always changing.
Yeah,
Exactly. It rained the other day.
The
climate changed. I love the new term atmospheric rivers. I mean, I love that new term.
You gotta come up with a new fancy term to describe rain.
Exactly.
But with that said, that wraps up our first segment here. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about some road trips that you can take on your own, some trips that we've really loved over the years. We will be right back on the Speed Traveler Roadshow.
Welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. You can check us out everywhere you download your favorite podcasts and on YouTube at YouTube/ The Speed Traveler, right?
Speed Traveler
how do you
channel.
spell that? The Speed Traveler channel. Yeah, on YouTube. Check out all of our previous videos on cars and whatnot. And then in this segment, Charlie, we're going to talk about some of our favorite roads. And you're staying a little bit more local, which I really appreciate because, one, I love that road. And two, because of all the atmospheric rivers that have been dumping water along the California coast, how long will that road be there?
Yeah.
And I'm moving a little bit more towards the central states or, the Midwest and into Colorado.
Yeah, so you can go first if you want.
Well, if you insist, I have to say, and I've done this road, and it's been a number of years, but the California Headwaters Scenic Byway.
California or Colorado?
Colorado.
Okay,
See,
good.
And that's how long it's been since I've done it. The Colorado Headwaters Scenic Byway is just this amazing road that navigates along the Colorado River, and it starts up in the Rocky Mountain National Park area, Grand Lake route, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It just winds down. It recently, and I say recently, within the last 10 years, was completely repaved. It is perfect roads. Amtrak has a great train that navigates through here as well.
Right.
And it's just beautiful. It's not that long a route, depending on how far you go. It's about 100 kilometers, anywhere between 80 and 130 kilometers, depending on where you start and where you finish.
Okay.
But you go through some great towns. And honestly, one of my first, I shouldn't say my first experiences, but one of my more recent experiences with that road, and it's amazing that I kind of found it this way, is I was doing a bike race that kind of traversed Colorado, and we rode through, and you end up in Breckenridge, and just riding this route was unbelievable. So if you ride a train, if you ride a bicycle, if you drive a car, there are three very distinct routes that navigate the same path that are just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you're right. You can't get any better than, I'm assuming that this is a summertime trip, or maybe late spring, early fall.
I mean, if it's snowing in the winter, you're not going to be able to do parts of it.
Right.
But because it's Breckenridge ski resorts right there, they really do a great job of keeping the roads clear. So it's not like it used to be. There's days when you're trying to get to Vail and the tunnel's closed, so you're stuck wherever you are.
You're not going anywhere.
I was stuck in Blackhawk for 4 days because of a storm that kind of buried us in. I was trying to drive around. I was sliding everywhere, and somehow I didn't hit every single tree that we went by millimeters. Finally, just stopped the car and said, "This is where we are." But the new road is so good that they clear it very, very well.
Right.
So it is more year round than it used to be.
Oh, that's so cool. So I'm reading it now. Rocky Mountain. You go through Rocky Mountain National Park is the start, right?
Yeah,
Grand Lake.
Yeah.
And then you follow the Colorado River kind of south and to the west, passing through towns of Grand Lake, Granby. Hot sulfur springs. Are there actually sulfur springs?
There are. There are.
Smelly, hot sulfur springs?
Smelly, hot sulfur springs, but I don't think it's the sulfur that smells, unfortunately. Coloradans not known for their bathing in their hairy armpits.
Oh, man.
Not to offend any Coloradans out there.
Yeah.
I did go to CU many years ago, so
Right.
I figure I have a little bit of levity there. But it's really cool because you do end up in Utah, and you can just dump into the Grand Canyon. So it's just a great route to do
Right.
if you have a limited amount of time, and if you're making a 3-day, 4-day, 5-day, week-long trip out of it, man, you end up into the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, that's what I was just reading that you end up Potash Road, Lower Colorado Scenic Byway goes through Moab, one of your favorite places.
Love that
bike
place.
racing community.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the Red Bull Rampage is down there. Well, that's actually down closer to St. George and Hurricane. But all of that, all those canyons that connect off of the Grand Canyon, it's spectacular.
And if you are a bike, outdoorsy type person, you can bring mountain bikes, and can you ride in Moab?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, they hell you lift.
Trails.
They've got trails everywhere, jug handle, all these great trails. Obviously the Moab, the rocks there, which are really grippy, which catches a lot of people off guard if you're on a bicycle or a motorcycle.
Okay.
It's because it's so grippy that you kind of have to change the way you ride your bike.
Got it.
But it's super cool. Super cool. Salut, my friend.
Oh man,
I gotta drink a little bit of water. Speaking of that, have a little beverage, and that's an important thing to bring up, though. While you're driving, make sure you stay hydrated and don't guzzle. Here's a pro tip: don't guzzle. Don't just go, oh my god, I'm thirsty.
In the middle, right?
Yeah, just little sips. I learned this from my dad.
Right.
He says, look, when you think you're thirsty or you're getting dehydrated, it's too late.
Yeah,
it's too late.
Exactly.
And even if you guzzle 12 ounces of water, it's not going to do anything but go right through. You're going to have to pee in 5 minutes. So little sips all the time.
Yeah.
And you'll stay hydrated and you won't get that same pee reaction.
Makes sense. And the old famous race car driver, Danny Sullivan, I think he won the 1984 Indy 500.
Spin it to win it. Yeah.
Spin and win. He once asked his trainer, I remember him talking about this, what's better, to take small sips from your drink bottle through the whole 500-mile Indy 500 or to take big sips less often? And the trainer was like, take small sips the whole way.
Yep.
And he did that. And he said he felt great at the end of the race.
Yeah, the reason being, and this is also true just cruising around, not going 220 miles an hour on the Indy 500, but this just cruising around, those little sips, what it allows to do is allows your body to assimilate that water before it actually gets to your bladder and you have to pee it all out.
Right.
So you actually end up more sweating it out or working it through your system and keeping all your cells hydrated. So good driving pro tip.
Yeah.
Little sips all the day.
Travelers.
Yeah, I like it.
So
Where are you heading, Charlie?
Where am I heading? Well, you know what? We did a trip, I'd say about a year and a half ago, and it was from Malibu, California to San Francisco. And I had never actually done it. Everyone talks about Highway 1 in California. I had never actually done the trip. And what was I don't think you had either.
Oh, I had. On my bicycle.
Oh, okay. So
thousands of times.
Yeah,
and a few times in cars.
So we started at 7:30 a.m. and we thought, the normal driving time from LA to San Francisco is about maybe 6 hours.
Yeah.
Like if you throw a gas stop in here or there. You could do it in 5 if you go straight through, no stops.
Right.
But so we started about, I think 7:30 or 8. We just assumed we would be, even with stops, we assumed we'd be in San Francisco by dinner time. And we ended up not getting there till midnight. And it was cold.
And it was freezing.
When we left LA, it was about 90. When we got to San Francisco, it was in the mid 50s.
Oh, I think it was colder than that.
Yeah.
I think it was colder than that.
So, but what a great trip up Highway 1. There, you can't do the entire thing on Highway 1. You could do a lot of it on Highway 1.
Yeah.
But we started in Malibu. We went up PCH, also known as Highway 1 there. And we went through the Ventura area. We went up to Santa Barbara and stopped there, had a couple laps. We went down State Street, which I know you love.
I love it down there.
Yeah, and then heads north. You have to get back on the 101. And then there is a turnoff to go towards Lompoc and those areas. And so you can get back on the one. And it was really fun. It was a beautiful day. It was super green.
Oh.
You can see the video if you go to the Speed Traveler YouTube page.
What's the address for that? I always seem to forget.
The Speed Traveler. So go to the Speed Traveler YouTube page, and that video is called Ford versus Ferrari, because I did it in a Ford Mustang, and you, of course, we flipped, and you had the Ferrari,
I got the Ferrari
F430. And it was a really fun day. One thing we learned about the Ford, or you did, is that it didn't get great mileage, did it?
No, well, not only that, but it's got a really small fuel cell.
Yeah.
You know, so a thirsty engine and a small
Yeah.
drink bottle were
Makes
not
for
a
a
good
lot of stops.
lot of stuff. But to that, I found what must have been at least 10 to a dozen or more historic style gas stations,
Oh,
like
yeah.
Ragged Point,
Yeah.
as an example. I mean, what a great place to stop is just kind of this old-timey feel. You know, there's a little pottery store inside
Right.
with local artists with their
Barbecue
stuff,
restaurant.
barbecue restaurants, and everyone's so friendly. And it's just, I almost felt like I was flashing back into the 50s, and all of a sudden there's going to be 7 gas station attendants who are going to come out,
Yeah.
check my oil,
Right.
clean the windows, make sure the wipers were in good shape.
Yeah, right.
You
In
know,
little white outfits.
in their little white outfits and the hat and everything. I mean, it was just, and everyone was like that though. I mean,
Yeah.
all the people we met along
it
the
was
way
such a cool-
were so nice.
Yeah.
And so just the gas station stops alone, as annoying as they first seemed to me,
Right.
they actually became a point of interest for me because
I agree.
it was so cool.
Old time gas stations. And yeah, so you were talking about just north of San Simeon.
San Simeon, yeah.
So we were going up Highway 1 and the road really gets windy there. And it was just so cool. Don't do it on a Saturday or Sunday or even a Friday. You're going to have to do it on like a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And we did. And it was just so cool because there was so little traffic. But yeah, we
Wow,
went.
is that another Speed Traveler pro tip?
That's a
is that
Speed
2
Traveler
in this
pro
episode?
tip.
Wow.
But we stopped at Hearst Castle. So we got to Morro Bay off the 101. You end up on PCH. We went north, Hearst Castle. Then we went to Ragged Point. Then the road really got windy.
Yes.
We ended up getting to Big Sur, and it was just such a great drive. We ended up having dinner stopping in Carmel.
Carmel, yeah.
Carmel by the sea, which
Where did we stop?
Highway 1 drives right through.
Portobello? Was that?
Yeah, Portobello. It was the
Portobello.
Italian restaurant.
Yeah, really
Great
good.
place.
Really good.
But then we got
Actually, we ran into the
owner
wine
of Dow.
Dow
Yeah.
wine, Keith Dow, right?
I can't remember his
I think it
first
was
name,
Keith.
but
He's
yeah.
a super nice guy. It was
Yeah.
pretty funny.
So go back in the car and then went north. And this could be pro tip number 3, but if you've ever wanted to drive Lombard Street, we got there at midnight and it was so weird. There was no police, no people, no tourists, nothing. And we had the place to ourselves at midnight. It was so weird.
It's so great. I love this part, and it may be a spoiler for some that haven't seen the episode on YouTube of Ford versus our version of Ford versus Ferrari, but. I mean, and you should actually be telling the story in the sense that, because you got there first. I thought I'd beat you, but then I started making some wrong turns and lights weren't working for
in
me.
San Francisco, yep.
And so I guess you were parked and all you could hear was...
Ghirardelli Square. Yeah. So we raced to Ghirardelli. I say Ghirardelli. I guess you say Ghirardelli.
I just to annoy
Some say tomato, some say tomato. But it was basically a race there. Without getting a ticket. That's always the rule, because that way you don't exceed the speed limit, at least by too much. And I thought Ghirardelli Square was open at midnight, but they had long.
Well, we also assumed we'd be there a little bit sooner.
We thought we'd be there earlier get a hot fudge sundae or something. But I was standing there waiting for you. And I was just so happy because I had beat you, but it was just all I could hear was like Ferrari engine sounds echoing through the entire city. And then they would stop, and then they'd go the opposite direction, and it would get quiet, and then they'd turn around and come back towards Ghirardelli Square. But it was a good time. You could check out the whole episode on at the Speed Traveler.
I
YouTube
really
page.
needed an Apple CarPlay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes,
because
you
I
did.
got so lost. My phone was
you
lying
did.
to me the whole
Yes.
time.
Yes.
I really needed a better navigation system.
Yeah, because the older cars don't have good nav. They don't have Apple CarPlay. They don't have any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but all right, we are going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about importing cars from Europe. This is the Speed Traveler Roadshow. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Speed Traveler Road Show. That's Charlie Frank. I'm Chris Evertsen, and you're listening to us live on KHTS AM 1220 FM 98.1. Also available wherever you download your podcast. And be sure to check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/The Speed Traveler. And in this segment, Charlie, normally we have a marquee brand that we're talking about, but right now, the economy is what it is.
Right.
And we're going to be discussing how to import cars from Europe and other places abroad.
Yeah.
And we have, and especially you in this moment, because you just recently went through this with a bunch of cars.
Right.
We have a lot of experience in this and a lot of don't do's.
Yeah.
And
Do's and don'ts.
a few very much so. You must do this.
Yeah.
So with that, recently we were looking at some interesting British marques, I believe. What was that car?
Oh, the TVR.
Yeah.
So that there you go. If you want to drive something that no one has, one thing to keep in mind in importing cars that's really important is they've got to be 25 years old and older now. And so
Hey, hang on a second, Charlie. You're like a 3-year-old fidgeting over there. What's going on?
Exactly. My slipper was falling off, and last thing I want to do is walk around the studio with no shoes on.
Barefoot, a la Nick Nolte.
Yeah, exactly. But one thing you want to keep in mind if you're going to import a car is you've got to have a good company that does this a lot. I mean, it's even us. We do this. But even for us, it's quite tricky.
Yeah.
So you got to find a company that is really specializes in this. One of the companies and they're not paying us, but one company that we like is West Coast Shipping, and that is wcshipping.com. So wcshipping.com, they can get you, and our contact there is Monica Mena, and she's in charge of business development. But you really need to get someone like that to walk you through it.
Right.
They'll charge you something for their service, but
of course,
it's not outrageous.
But it's
a
worthwhile spend because not only did she treat us like real people,
right?
And we imported a car that's going to come into. We'll showcase it in an upcoming episode, so no spoilers. But my opinion is that was a fantastic, one of the better experiences we had with importing a car working with a third-party importer to get that car here.
Yeah, exactly. So they've got a wealth of knowledge. They know how to do it. And they also, what's interesting is they just get the whole car market. Like you can buy a car in Europe, and I saw on their site you could ship it directly to Barrett Jackson. So they know that there's guys that are looking to buy cars in Europe because the dollar is strong right now.
Yeah.
It's almost, the other day it was almost 1-to-1 euro to dollar.
Wow.
And so that's good buying power. But getting back to the specific cars,
so
it's got to be 25 years old. So there's a ticker. There's some really cool cars that come out of England that we don't have here. And one of them is the TVR Cerbera. It's Cerbera. We're going to show a picture of it if you're watching on YouTube. But it's 420 horsepower. It's got a 4.5 liter V8. It's right-hand drive.
Of course.
It's like a no-nonsense car that's fast as the Dickens. And it has it's just so cool. Like you're not going to see them anywhere.
No. And that goes to that whole uniqueness you're talking about. It's so unique. No one's going to have that car.
Right.
And there seems to be a few of those available right now.
For sure. Yeah, there are. I think
not here in the U.S.
No. Yeah, not here. I think I've seen one here in the U.S. Otherwise, I've seen none. But and so that, keep an eye out for that car if you want something really unique. I've heard they're not terribly hard to work on, so that's always a good thing. TVR has made cool cars for years.
Surprisingly, a lot of the British cars mechanically are fairly simple and streamlined and easy to work on. The issue is more of the metric American kind of thing and getting parts for it. So, if you can find a car, maybe another pro tip, it's nice to get some of those specialty items that wouldn't be available here.
Yeah.
Although surprisingly, and this is crazy, but a lot of Dodge parts will fit on those cars.
Right.
Or I should say GM parts.
And you've got a Dodge.
Yeah, it's a donor truck.
And I have a GM. So it works out well.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to get too crazy and that's a little bit too exotic for you, you can also find Porsche 928s in Europe right now. There's definitely guys importing those cars. The 928, I was recently looking for one because I saw a beautiful one at the dealership. And the 928S, that was 1980, 81, 82 in that range. It has a lot more horsepower than the American counterpart to that.
It sure
car.
does.
It has an additional 50 horsepower. So those are getting about 300 horsepower, and you can find them in Europe for about 30,000 euros. It's gonna probably cost you $5,000 to get it here when you're all said and done. Then you of course got to register.
Not that much.
It's not that much.
It's not that much. I mean, it's less than the first class ticket.
I agree. Yeah.
So to fly you or fly an individual back and forth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting way to look at buying cars. I've got right now a Volkswagen bus.
Yeah.
Which is in Brazil's called a Kombi, or I guess it's called a Kombi everywhere.
Kombi everywhere, yeah.
But what's interesting about Brazil is my car is a 74. So in the U.S. and Germany, they had moved on to a newer model, but they had the old molds in Brazil. So they kept making, essentially, my bus looks like a 66 bus because that's the mold they had. And they kept making them through the mid to late 70s.
Oh, that's so great.
If you want an old looking VW bus, go to Brazil and you can find them. There's lots of companies. There's Kombi Brazil is one company, and those are great places to find anything Volkswagen, because they built so many Volkswagens in Brazil.
Right.
You know that.
So I'll ask you a question now. First, vehicles coming out of Europe, I'm a little more comfortable buying something sight unseen from Europe. I feel like maybe I don't know why I feel this way, but maybe you tend to be dealing with more reputable groups or individuals.
Yeah.
I feel that just what little I know about the Brazilian experiment,
right.
and that came out funny.
Yeah.
The Brazilian experiment. You don't really know who you're dealing with. You don't get a good sense. So if you have an agent that in the country that you're working with, wherever the origin of that vehicle might be from, it's important to create that connection, that personal connection. So it's not like you're being taken, be taken to the cleaners on anything.
Right.
You actually have someone that's maybe doing a good or a better job of boots on the ground inspection and making sure everything happens correctly.
Yeah, I used combibrazil.com. The guy's name is Simon. He's from San Diego, ironically.
Oh, I did not know that.
And lives down in Brazil now in Sao Paulo. And that's where the car came from. So you do have some safety features involved if you go through a company like Kombi Brazil. But yeah, I mean, you always have to be a little careful. I mean, you are sort of buying it sight unseen.
Right.
So it makes it a little tricky. You can buy a pre-purchase inspection, PPI. We always suggest that you do that.
Always.
But I think getting back to Europe, you were talking about like if you buy from a Porsche dealer in Europe or a really well-known classic car dealer in Europe, you're pretty safe. Like those guys are.
Well, you're very safe. You're also paying a little bit of a premium for that.
You're paying a premium, but it's worth it.
It's worth the not having to take buy stock in Advil.
Yeah, and some other cars. We're almost done with this this segment. Man, it went by fast, didn't it?
It went really fast. Do we have a moment to talk about the Kombi a little bit more, because we've done a lot of work on it, cleaned it all up, making sure it's all mechanically sound.
Right.
Going through the registration process.
Right.
And I know it's going to go up for sale pretty soon.
Yeah.
Have you? Because we haven't talked about this yet. This is kind of off the cuff here.
Right.
I mean, is this something we're going to try to bring down to Barrett-Jackson or one of those auctions, or do you think just going right to bring a trailer?
Yeah, probably not. I think for the one thing you need to know about the Brazilian models is that, like the Bring a Trailer.com guys, they do premium auctions, and also Barrett-Jackson, they're kind of snobs. They like ones that were built in Germany.
Right.
They like the finest. They kind of look down on the Brazilian ones. But with that said, the Brazilian ones look amazing. They run great. And I think that if you just want a fun looking car or you want it for like marketing purposes, you can't go wrong with a $40,000 or $50,000 VW bus right now.
Right.
I mean, it's only going to go up.
It's only going to go up, especially if you can keep it in good nick. And that's kind of funny you say that, because I almost don't want to sell the Kombi just because it is kind of a great speed traveler mobile studio when we start hitting some of the cars and coffee events.
That is a great idea. That is such a good idea. Yeah, we can use it temporarily as the mobile studio. Yeah, such a good idea. And we're also going to do an upcoming video, the VW Beetle that we have, the 71 and the Kombi driving from LA to San Diego via Highway 1. I mean, what better cars Can you do a video with?
Well, I would. To be fair, I wouldn't necessarily want to pull that out.
Cars.
yeah. Iconic car on an iconic road. And to be fair, I wouldn't necessarily want to be trying to be going 80 miles an hour down the 5 freeway
with the brakes that came on those cars.
You mean it's got brakes? I mean, I thought it was Fred Flintstone at one point.
God.
You gotta stick your feet out the door and stop the car.
Scary. But all right, well, that wraps up that segment on importing. If you have any questions, you can always hit us up on the Speed Traveler Instagram page or go to our YouTube page and comment on one of the videos, and we can get back to you if you got specific questions. But we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back for our last block, Chris, and we're going to talk about Formula One and previewing the teams for 2024.
Exciting.
This is the Speed Traveler Roadshow. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. That's Charlie Frank. I'm Chris Evertsen, and check us out wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Of course, you're listening to us live here at KHTS AM 1220 FM 98.1. Also, check us out on the YouTubes at The Speed Traveler. And in this segment, Charlie, we're going to be talking a little bit of F1 and how appropriate, because this segment is also brought to everyone by Blenders Eyewear. Big thank you to Blenders Eyewear. If you go to blenderseyewear.com, get whatever you want. Use code TST20, get 20% off any Blenders Eyewear product. And the reason it's kind of interesting is Blenders also partnered up last year with the Red Bull Racing Team, and is the official eyewear partner of the F1 World Champion driver and championship constructors team, Red Bull Max Verstappen.
Right, and they killed it. They had a banner year last year.
They sure did.
No one's won that many races in a year. What did Max, I forget, he ended up winning 18, I think?
18.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable what they did. They just destroyed the competition last year.
And Perez won 2 races, so I mean, Red Bull won all but 1 race on the season. It's
really crazy. We love our blenders, by the way. I went into the blender store in Santa Monica, and they had this cool little model of the. I didn't even realize they were sponsoring the team, the Red Bull team.
Oh, really?
And and I went into the blender store and I saw a little model of Max Verstappen's car.
And they're all the orange eyewear and whatnot. Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, really cool. Also, for those of you who are really into Formula One, the Speed Traveler is launching a podcast only. It is the Speed Traveler Formula One Deep Dive. So we're going to take all these subjects we touch on today, and we're going to do a much deeper dive on each team and what to expect for 2024. But yeah, Chris, with that said, we got a few minutes here. Let's go through the teams that are competing this year in the 2024 championship and give me your thoughts on from top to bottom. I guess we start with Red Bull. What do you see coming this year?
Not to go too deep into it, but there's a lot of controversy with Chris Horner at the moment.
That's right.
At the helm of Red Bull, and what kind of changes that might bring. And I think if Red Bull can if Chris Horner can weather the storm, it's going to be a challenge to beat them. But I think the other teams will be a lot closer. If this controversy has the negative effect of Chris Horner leaving the team, I feel that Adrian Newey leaves the team, goes away right there with him.
And that's the chief designer. Been with the team
forever. So that would, I think, lead to some issues within the team that might prevent them from being as focused on the job of racing at hand. I don't want to see Chris Horner leave, but if he is responsible for whatever is being said. And honestly, I don't know anything. I have not looked into it at all because everything I've read has been just,
tabloid,
clickbait.
Apparently it's he acted inappropriately, not in a sexual way, but acted inappropriately controlling people, and we know someone very close to us who works with Christian Horner and
directly,
Adrian Newey. And she said that, or they said, she said that those guys work 15 hours a day and they never take a break. So I could see how, Christian Horner kind of crosses the person and treats them like they're, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is he treats them like they should be working 16 hours a day if he's there 15 hours a day, and someone. It's going to take that sooner or later. Somebody's going to be pissed about that and be like, hey, I'm not getting paid $8 million a year to run the team. I'm getting paid $80,000.
And my answer right there is you took the job.
Yeah.
You took the job, and you are probably in your dream job at the moment.
Right.
So you know what? This is how hard they work.
Yeah.
How do you impress your employer?
Yeah.
Work harder than they do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right?
No,
you're
right.
and so I don't know the ins and outs, but whatever it is, I hope it all gets cleared up before our first race of the season, before practice, or let me rephrase, before the first official track day with current models, 2024 models. But Charlie, there's 9 other teams in the ranks here. What are your thoughts looking down the list?
Well, second, the next best team was Mercedes, and Hamilton returning there, of course, and George Russell. Hamilton's been there for 10 years, and they've just destroyed it. Although the last few years, they haven't been quite the same team. But I mean, that's only natural because they dominated for so long, for 8 years, that they're gonna have to have a few off years. But
they showed signs of, later in the season in 2023, they showed real good signs of speed and pace. Both Russell and Hamilton.
And they've got Mercedes behind them, spending a ton of money. So I think Mercedes takes a step up this year. I think they're going to be faster. So that's team number 2. We've also got Ferrari. They've got Charles Leclerc. They just signed him to a new contract. And they've got Carlos Sainz, who's going to be out of Ferrari at the end of the year. Carlos has got something to prove, doesn't he?
I think he's going to be driving with a little bit more abandon than usual. He's going to take a page out of his father's playbook and maybe get a wheel off the ground here and there.
Right.
It's an interesting dynamic that's happening between the Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari in 2025.
Right.
It's apparently they feel. I have a couple opinions, but I think that I'm going to save that for the deep dive. I think both Leclerc and Sainz, and particularly Sainz, are going to be driving like maniacs.
Yeah.
They're going to be driving like maniacs and going for it. So I think the competition, and Ferrari with Frederic Vasseur, at the helm, is going to make some really good moves. I mean, obviously he's made a huge move in getting Lewis Hamilton there for 2025. So I definitely agree with you that Ferrari should be faster as well.
Yeah, and also a team that showed really good pace at the end of the year is led by our buddy Zach Brown, and that's McLaren with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Those guys, towards the end of the year, showed great pace. I
mean, look at the driving skill we saw on what everyone touted as a kind of a bizarre track to a degree in Las Vegas.
Right.
I mean, I thought the competition at Las Vegas across the board, as from a racing standpoint, was just incredible.
Right.
So we saw, and particularly looking at some of the footage from Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris and how they drove the McLaren MP20. What was the MP27? 127. I don't remember what it's called now. They drove incredibly well, and those are two very young and very hungry drivers. And again, I think that team as a whole with Zach Brown at the helm is going to come to the fore as well. I think they're definitely going to elevate their game.
Yeah, another team is the Aston Martin team. What a great name for Formula One. Lawrence Stroll Lance Stroll, the driver, this is his dad, Lawrence Stroll, billionaire from Canada. And he bought the team. What a sharp dude. He bought the team for $150 million. And now he just sold, the team's valued at $1 billion. He just sold 30% of the team for $300 million. So apparently it cost him $70 million to keep the team going, a couple of the lean years. So he's in maybe $250 million. So he just got back his entire investment plus a kicker, $50 million, and he owns 70% of the team.
Yeah.
So you can't doubt that guy. I mean, what a sharp guy. But the team did well. They brought former champion Fernando Alonso over, and he and Lance Stroll did quite well.
Yeah, I mean, you would expect Fernando Alonso to do well in any car he gets into. I don't care what kind of POS it might be.
Right.
He's going to drive the wheels off that thing, and he showed that in the beginning part of the season.
Did. Yeah.
I'm a fan of Lance Stroll. I think he, in my opinion, he seems like a really nice guy.
Right.
I actually think he's an incredibly solid driver, and I feel like he's not pushing as hard as he probably can,
right.
With using the skill sets that he has. Not pushing beyond your limits,
right.
but pushing a little bit harder. And I think Alonso helped him with that a lot as well. But Lance knows am I going to beat Fernando Alonso? Maybe not. But he's learning a lot. So I think it's a great pairing.
Yeah.
And like you said, they do have a great name in F1.
Right.
Austin Martin.
Yeah. And you know what? In an effort to save some time, we're actually almost out of time. You're going to have to go to the Speed Traveler Formula One deep dive to get a little bit deeper, a deeper or more information on the last 5 teams. But out of the last 5 teams, we've got the Alpine team, we've got the Visa Cash App,
Maybe the worst named F1 team.
Yeah, the Kick Sauber team, the Williams team, and the Haas F1. Are any of those 5, since we only have 30 seconds here, are any of those 5 teams take a step forward this year?
I think they all will take a step forward. I think the biggest thing we're going to see here in the 2024 season, and I really hope for this, is Red Bull's dominance is curtailed just a little bit. Those other front runners are going to push for more victories, so we're going to see a little bit more parity in that regard. And I think the middle pack is going to be an even tighter race in 2024. It's going to be a very, very exciting F1 season in 2024.
Cool. And with that said, we're going to do the Speed Traveler Formula One deep dive from a location, which will be really fun. We'll have some people there that are Formula One fans, and we're going to give our predictions for the year. So you're going to have to keep an eye out that on wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Charlie Frank. This is Chris Evertsen. We're wrapping up this episode of the Speed Traveler Roadshow here on KHTS Radio. We'll see you next week.